Pay attention. We can almost hear our liturgies calling to us as we eat, drink, and bathe in worship, as we break bread together at the communion table, as we baptize. Pay attention. Pay attention to how God is with us in everyday food and drink. Pay attention, liturgies call to us. Pay attention to how God is with us in watersheds and wheat fields, in grocery stores and water supplies. Pause and give grateful attention to these everyday, often earthy, often overlooked things, because these things connect us to sacred truths that reside in our neighborhoods and homes. Pay attention to these things, even while crafting worship words that wrap spiritual vestments around them, because these things connect us to God's presence in all creation. It is from this energy, this paying attention to worship, paying attention to life, it is from this place that liturgical writing emerges with grace and insight and wisdom. This paying attention is something that I call, incarnational. Incarnational listening, where we embody in our very ways of hearing and leaning into the world and each other, we embody something about God's image and presence. Incarnational listening begins with attending to voice. We attend to the voices of the world around us. We attend to the sounds of our worship, and we attend to our voices and the voices of others in our communities. When we pay attention, when we attend in this way, we might hear the prophetic voice of someone like Anna Julia Cooper. Cooper, a Black educator and writer in the 19th century, proclaimed God's radical truth in the decades following the Civil War. All people, Cooper trumpeted, are created not only in the image of God, but also in the sound of God. So, a question: how do life-giving and transformative worship words grow out of incarnational listening? Well, that's what we want to practice this week. The listening, encountering the beauty, distilling a central image for a call and response litany, and then crafting something for worship that pays attention and invites others to join in the song. So, let's get to work. So again, this writing exercise invites us to practice incarnational listening and then craft from what we hear a litany for worship. So, a litany. The word litany comes from the Greek litania. Litania means prayer. Most litanies in worship are dialogues, conversations. A leader speaks and the congregation responds. Litanies are communal prayers. Liturgical litanies often include repeated lines or phrases. A phrase like the Kyrie eleison that we hear in some classical liturgies, Lord have mercy. This Kyrie eleison, the Greek, again, for Lord have mercy, emerged as a regular presence in Christian liturgies beginning in the 6th century. Believed to have pre-Christian roots in the Roman world, the phrase also appears in the New Testament. In Matthew 15:22, for example, a Canaanite woman cries out to Jesus, "Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David." So this repeated refrain that shows up in historical litanies weaves its thread into the contemporary moment, where we also invite attention and invite people to pay attention by repeating a phrase in a litany in a communal way. Today, worship litanies might be printed in bulletins or shared via a screen in the sanctuary, or offered in a call and response format where people repeat what the leader says. In most cases, well, maybe I should say many cases, a leader voices the community's petitions and worshipers respond with a repeated word or phrase. Other options are also possibilities. You might use 4 voices that serve as the primary leaders, a quartet, if you will, and they lead this prayerful dialogue with a response that's communal from the congregation or the gathered worshipers. So I invite you to use these guidelines to explore writing a litany for worship. First, choose a central idea, biblical text, or image for your litany. Maybe the central idea has to do with colors or themes that connect to the current liturgical season, or something that's happening in the life of the community, or something that you've heard about in the news. Central ideas also surface in music we hear, people we encounter, news articles we read, and so on. So let's put pen to paper for some free writing. Find a location to sit and write. You might want to settle into a coffee shop or your favorite chair, or sit outside. Where we choose to write is a part of the process. In places where we write, we encounter sights, sounds, smells that inspire us. Set a timer. Spend 5 minutes writing, just writing. Write down everything that comes to mind as you think about your litany's central idea. Write paragraphs, make lists. The important thing is to write for 10 minutes, for the whole 5 minutes without stopping. We've done this in a previous exercise. Don't edit or revise. Don't let inner critics stifle your imagination. Just write. Tapping into the sacred wisdom that dwells within. Sometimes after the first 2 or 3 minutes, you've really let go and moved into the flow. And that's where some of the most creative writing emerges. Okay, the next step is to see if you can discover the core, the central theme of a litany in what you've written. Reread what you just wrote. Sometimes reading aloud helps you to experience ideas, words, and phrases in new ways. So yeah, go ahead, read it aloud to yourself or to someone else. Also, since liturgies are written to be spoken aloud, litanies in particular, we need to hear what our ideas sound like. What do these words sound like? What kind of consonants and syllables are embedded in what I've just written for these 5 minutes? What are the rhythms and energies there? As you read, notice what textures or tones demand your attention or capture imagination. Listen for words or phrases that have a gravitational pull for you. Of the phrases that you've written down so far, are there 1 or 2 that might serve as a refrain or a repeated element of your liturgy? Okay, now that you've made these notes, you've done your 5 minutes of writing, you've teased out some words and phrases and ideas, textures and tones. The next idea is to decide the structure of the litany. Invite God's Spirit to join you in this creative work. Consider I'll call it a narrative arc for the litany. What story will the litany tell about God or humanity or creation? What does this litany celebrate or lament or confess? Does this litany call forth action? Once you've answered this question and developed the arc and how the energy might flow toward a conclusion, consider again the rhythm, the flow. How does it begin and end? Does the litany move in a spiral, or does it rise and fall and rise again? Or does it move from lament to praise? Is it quiet, or does it invite a response of joyful praise? Think about the tone and structure and rhythm of the litany as it relates to the theme, what you're trying to communicate, and see if those two things are resonant. Now you're ready to write the litany. Using the ideas and phrases from your free writing and from these other steps that you've taken, craft several 4 or 5 line stanzas that give voice, that articulate the litany's theme or narrative arc. Add the repeated phrase you noted earlier as a refrain after each stanza, or write a new refrain. By this time, your litany is beginning to take shape. Picture worshipers vocalizing the litany. Do you imagine certain kinds of voices speaking each stanza, or do you envision a single leader's voice calling out to worshipers for a communal response? Continue editing, shaping. Take a moment, read your litany out loud. Yes, go ahead, read it out loud. Where does the litany really sing? Where does it weep? How does the litany flow from one stanza to the next? Do you need to make some adjustments to improve that flow? Okay, you're now ready to do a final edit of the litany. Consider these tips and questions as you revise. Have you used concrete images and dynamic verb forms? Concrete images invite worshipers into the world of the litany, colors, sounds of words. Active verbs keep the energy of the litany moving forward. Second, does the litany's cadence resonate with its content? I asked this question before, and now I want you to revisit that. For example, if your theme is God's peace flows like a river, does your litany flow like a river? Or if your theme is marching to Zion, does the litany march or move with purpose? What revisions can you make to weave cadence and content more tightly together? And now, did you write your litany for the ear? Litanies are public prayers. They are meant to be spoken aloud. They are meant to be heard. What does your litany sound like? What does it feel like in the mouths of the people who are speaking it? Are the phrases written to be spoken in a single breath, or are there natural spots for a break? I hope you enjoyed this exercise, and I'm excited about reading what you've written. You know, when we craft them with attention to beautiful form and theological depth, litanies can convey what it means to embrace and embody faith in today's world. Because communities vocalize the words of litanies together in unison or harmony, litanies also invite worshipers to experience how we are all in the human story and God's story together. The rhythms of call and response within a well-crafted litany remind us we are all living out reconciliation and resurrection, redemption. We are all incarnating God's voice and image together. And together we can join God in God's work to redeem the world.